and welcome back, Cypress Cubs. Today's Thursday, and this morning I was in the kitchen and I was cooking lasagna for my mom and dad. Hi, Mom and Dad. With meatballs, and it started raining outside, and I said, oh my gosh, I have the perfect book today to read. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. It is by Judi Barrett and drawn by Ron Barrett. Before I start, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is a tall tale. A tall tale is kind of like an exaggeration. Like my dad used to tell me that he walked like 4 miles in the snow to school and then 4 miles uphill back home. That's an exaggeration. A tall tale is an exaggeration of things that probably, no, they can't happen, but make for a great story. So here we go. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was squeezing orange for juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we could each eat, and Grandpa was doing the flipping. Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed toward the kitchen ceiling, and landed right on Henry. After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall tale bedtime story he'd ever told. Across an ocean, over lots of huge bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay the tiny town of Swallow. What an odd name for a town. I wonder why they named it that. That's what I'm thinking. In most ways, it was very much like any other town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses and trees and gardens all around them, a schoolhouse, about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. But there were no food stores in the town of Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The sky. The only thing that was really different about Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day, at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything that everyone ate came from the sky. Came from the sky? Let's see what happens. Whatever the weather served, that's what they ate that day. But it never rained rain, and it never snowed snow, and it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice, and it snowed mashed potatoes and green peas. And sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. Yum, oh. I wish hamburgers would fall from the sky. That would be pretty cool. The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear a prediction for the next day's food. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks and spoons, knives and napkins. That way they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home, put them on the refrigerators in case they get hungry in between meals. The menu varied, but by the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny side up eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast. I don't know what sunny side up eggs is, but I'm going to ask my family later. Maybe they'll help me explain what sunny side up eggs means. Butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast, and most of the time, it rained milk afterwards. For lunch one day, Frankfurters, all ready in their rolls, blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles an hour. There's another word I don't know, frankfurters, but looking from the picture, I can tell a frankfurter is a hot dog. There were mustard clouds nearby when the wind shifted to the east and brought in the baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times, with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas, baked potatoes, and were followed by gradual clearing, with a wonderful jello setting in the west. The sanitation department, which is like the trash people or the people that come and clean up things, the sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather unusual job for sanitation. It had to remove all the food that fell on the houses and the sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned up things after every meal and fed all the dogs and cats. Then they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans to feed the fish and the turtles and the whales and the dolphins. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so that the soil would be richer for people's flower gardens. Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather, took a turn for the worse. Look at this, it says, spaghetti ties up the town. Oh no, I wonder what's going to happen. One day, there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day. Gorgonzola is a type of cheese, like cheddar or Swiss cheese. Gorgonzola is a type of cheese. The next day, there was only broccoli, all overcooked. And the next day, there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Ugh. Another day, there was pea soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that got stuck in the fog. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were their proportions. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. On Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls, and all day long and into the night. There were soft rolls and hard rolls, some with seeds and some without. There was white bread and rye bread and whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they had ever seen bread and rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone had to stay indoors. We know how they feel, right? Roofs were damaged and the sanitation department was beside itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. To help out, the people piled as much bread as they could in their backyards. The birds picked at it a bit, but it just stayed there and got staler and staler. There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because of its weight, and so they had to close down the school. Those kids are just like us right now. The school got closed down for a while. Lunch one day brought 15-inch drifts of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with big stomach aches. There was an awful salt and pepper wind, accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There was seeds and pulp everywhere. Oh, I forgot to show you that one. Bam. Lunch one day brought 15-inch drifts with cream cheese. Oh, I read that. I messed that up, but that's okay. Here we go. The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged. Many houses had been badly damaged and by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up and there was no more school for the children. So a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread, sandwich style, with peanut butter, took the absolute necessities with them, and set sail on their rafts for a new land. After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town, which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well. Well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in the new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at a supermarket. They found it odd that food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again. And nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what happened. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I remembered his goodnight kiss. The next morning, we woke to see snow falling outside our window. We ran downstairs for breakfast and ate it a little faster than usual so we could go sledding with Grandpa. It was funny, but even as we were sliding down the hill, we thought we saw a giant pat of butter at the top, and we could almost smell the mashed potatoes. The end. What a great book and a great tall tale. Food can't really fall from the sky, but it makes for an awesome story. And today, you can look up other tall tales, like American tall tales, like Paul Bunyan or Pecos Bill. Do that later on today if you have time, and I will see you tomorrow.